I kind of expected this, but at the same time, holy moly, brace yourself. Hey everyone, it's Charles. How are you today? The Sketchbeard lives and it purrs. I just read 500 plus Japanese comments online reacting to the recent situation in which a company known as ShowPro, which manages the rights to the Pokémon anime among various other anime IP, filed what was essentially an international slap suit in a Japanese court of law to fine a YouTuber making Pokémon anime content in New Zealand who goes by the name Suede, as well as circumvent YouTube's fair use guidelines and copyright strike appeal system to insta-KO his channel. With all of this sparking a big scare that the same technique could be used by this company or other anime production companies to eliminate anime YouTubers at will, regardless of whether or not they are following the fair use guidelines of their own countries. Indeed, it is absolutely terrifying that every YouTuber in the world is now beholden to the laws of every country in the world, wherein different legal environments create loopholes through which companies can easily bully creators off the internet if they do not approve of what these creators are doing. However, thus far I have only really seen the anime YouTube community discussing the Western point of view on the situation, a viewpoint that essentially revolves around 1, that it is appalling that YouTube does not give its creators the ability to geoblock their content and more effectively dodge some of these issues, and 2, that it is simply very unfair that companies can get away with this. So to add more perspectives to the discussion, I've translated a bunch of Japanese reactions to the Suede fiasco that provide a pretty decent sample of the main bodies of thought coming out of web communities in Japan to illustrate some differences in thinking that may be pretty shocking to you. The 500 plus comments I read through came from 2 websites, a Pokemon fan website, as well as a website whereupon Japanese people react to overseas news stories, and upon which 70% or so of the comments were actually absolutely abhorrent. But in this video, I am going to set aside the small man internet posturing to focus on the comments that really did illuminate some interesting differences in thinking. The long story short is that 2 things became clear to me. 1, there is a near complete lack of sympathy for creators like Suede or Totally Not Mark, which is quite sad to see, and they are generally seen as being entirely in the wrong. And 2, views on creator rights and reproduction for criticism and commentary in Japan and the West are so radically different that it is going to be a real doozy finding any middle ground. But I sure hope that in time we can. With that said, let us comment on these comments, and as always, it is going to be a fun time, so kindly give that like button a little back scratch for the YouTube algorithm, and let's jump right in. As mentioned, the following translated remarks are from posters reacting specifically to the Suede situation, but they do speak to the broader arguments. So let's start with some of the less friendly stuff and work towards some solutions and somewhat more positive vibes. This is what you call showing remorse when you are in the wrong. Why are these guys acting like they are victims? In the eyes of Japanese companies, Western YouTubers are like ants on a cake, and it is not a win-win situation at all. How about you just don't upload illegal videos? At the end of the day, Westerners are just trying to get their own way. They have no respect for the creator or the idea. Since there are Amazon Prime and Netflix for overseas development, the profitable customers will be attracted, even if illegal viewers who paint themselves as advertisers don't put forth their efforts. That is to say that the people posting these things without permission are quite simply obstructing business, and I am just happy that they were able to suspend their accounts. It's terrible that a Japanese company is able to delete a channel at will, and it's even more frightening that unrelated overseas YouTubers can use animators' properties as if they were their own without getting permission. Since when do you YouTubers own the anime that you are streaming without being permitted to do so? Anyways, as you can see, a lot of Japanese commenters are not at all sympathetic to the creators who are getting pegged by these animation companies overseas with strikes, claims, and lawsuits. People tend to see them as entirely in the wrong, and this is indicative of just how different the thinking between Japan and other regions of the world is when it comes to this type of issue. The reason why people want to use this content without getting permission to do so is because without that content, their views will not increase. Music reaction videos without music videos in them don't take off either. And in the end, saying you're advertising is just an excuse to increase your views on your videos. By the same token, I wonder how many clicks the articles on these advertisement-ridden websites would be getting if they did not use content without permission. And I certainly don't think it's a bad thing that fan sites pull in people and revenue with the thumbnails borrowed from the source material of intellectual properties of other companies, because generally they do great work. As I've said, I don't really think that the free advertising argument is the greatest argument upon which to build your use of other people's materials, but it's no secret that everything from industry magazines to sports and hobbyist websites that rely on the coverage of other intellectual properties more or less have to utilize the source materials to some extent in order to do their reporting, and having to get permission every time you wanted to use an image or clip would basically render these businesses inoperable, which is exactly why we have things like fair use and fair dealings guidelines in many countries around the world. I'm certain that most people who learn about the anime from these videos are probably watching it illegally anyways, so I don't think that this is good advertising in the least. I can't imagine that people who are coming in from free videos are actually going to pay for anything. This is an interesting point since piracy truly is rampant in the anime world, but to that same point, would it not then make more sense to focus the crackdowns on anime piracy websites, rather than people using short clips and images under their country's fair use laws, as long as the product is transformative and doesn't serve as a mere substitute for the original product? To me, this just seems like the perfect opportunity to build closer relationships between production companies and YouTubers, through which, for instance, YouTubers could be required to put links to official streams and merchandise in their videos to support the creators and copyright holders. On this note, I also saw a lot of comments suggesting that the Japanese otaku community is basically paying through the nose to support the works they love and actually have second or third seasons of less popular anime made into a reality. And this is both true and very admirable. A lot of otaku do buy the deluxe editions of anime DVDs or Blu-ray discs, which are super expensive, among other goods. That is awesome. However, now that the overseas sales of the anime industry have actually surpassed domestic sales, I don't think it is entirely fair to act as if the foreign market is full of nothing but freeloaders. Forget YouTube, do something about those pirate sites. Exactly. How about making it so that people can share profits? Like with those clipped videos you see on YouTube these days. If you use the original images and clips, then profit will go to the publisher, and then based on a contracted percentage, more of those profits will trickle down to the creators. With this system, anyone else using the materials could be taken down without question. In this case, YouTubers could say that they are advertising with impunity. If there is indeed a solution to this problem, then what about a YouTube system wherein the holders of the copyrights are paid whenever people watch the videos? And that includes secondary videos. Isn't Amazon doing that? Without a system like this problem will simply never go away. Now there is another interesting possibility. Currently, if you get a copyright claim, even if you're leaning on fair use and only using a tiny sample of the original work, then 100% of your revenue goes to whoever filed the claim. However, if there was a system wherein a certain percentage of revenue would go to the holders and creators could create content worry-free, I think that would be a nice compromise as an additional revenue stream for copyright holders, while still providing revenue as a source of motivation for creators to put in hours and hours of hard work to drive awareness and love and new viewership for all of these great shows, and to do so without fear. It seems pretty reasonable to me. Different laws, different culture, I guess. Why don't you draw your own pictures? Japan is very tolerant of doujin. For those who don't know what doujin and doujinshi are, they're the creators and the fan-made works that are made independently without approval from the copyright holders and are usually sold on a small scale or at conventions. And there are many stores here built around the sale of these materials, and they get by doing so without punishment. Now, these materials can range from truly epic Pokémon stories to erotic stuff to even more erotic stuff and sometimes very strange stuff, you name it. And I generally think that they are a very healthy part of the community and generally do a lot more good for the brands than harm, just as the videos of YouTubers do when they truly are transformative. Unfortunately, you could potentially still get dinged for producing such materials, as they technically are considered copyright infringement. It's just that companies generally ignore them. However, that is not to say that they are necessarily going to provide these allowances for everyone, and I think we need a solution with more security if these companies indeed do have the ability to launch cross-border career-debilitating lawsuits that go around YouTube's system to knock out creators regardless of where they are. Copyright laws in Japan and overseas are very different, and it seems like the copyright law is much more tolerant of derivative works and mashups in other countries. Other countries have intellectual property rights too, don't they? Are they that relaxed? Huh? It's Japanese content, so should it not be judged by the Japanese justice system? If a video truly is a good thing for the industry, then they will give it another look over, won't they? Well, the foreigner's argument is what it is, but Japan's copyright laws, without any fair use clause for consumers, is also crazy. Amen. I hope this gave you a taste of the fairly rampant backlash towards foreign anime YouTubers coming out of a couple Japanese web communities who have a totally different way of thinking about copyright, their concerns about piracy, a handful of interesting solutions to contemplate, and, just like us, general bewilderment about the differences in copyright laws from country to country. Honestly, as you probably know, this whole situation has gotten me really riled up, but I hope it marks the beginning of some work towards solutions regarding Japanese IP issues rather than a march towards the end of anime YouTube as we know it. From putting pressure on YouTube to give normal creators geo-blocking abilities, to lobbying the Japanese legal system via big corporations like the Tube to amend its fairly restrictive fair use clause, which is causing all kinds of problems around the globe now that we are more connected than ever before, to negotiating some kind of revenue sharing model with IP holders to create win-wins and ensure that everyone can keep doing their work while feeling safe about it, to simply finding creative ways to talk about Japanese IP. I don't know exactly what the best set of solutions is, or how we even get to that solution set, but the firestorm around the Suede and Totally Not Mark incidents, as concerning and very unfortunate for the creators as they are, the rage is at least getting some of these discussions their long overdue time in the limelight. And I just hope that things swing for the better rather than the worst from the perspectives of anime YouTube creators who simply want to follow the definition of fair use in the countries they broadcast to and not get sued into oblivion. But how about you? Were the viewpoints of Japanese commenters surprising to you? Do you have any of your own creative solutions to these problems in mind? And how can I actually keep the commentary in these videos grounded to the anime being discussed without actually showing any of the source materials? I'm curious what you think, and as always, let's chat.